Hi guys, so before we get into it, a couple of quick disclaimers. Firstly, there will be full spoilers today. To approach this review in any other way would be a serious neglect of my public duty. And the other disclaimer is that you'll find all my other reviews of Stephen King adaptations in my Stephen King playlist. So this particular Children of the Corn was directed by John Gulager. You might remember him from the horror film Feast, the horror film Feast 2 Sloppy Seconds, and also Feast 3 The Happy Finish. Do let me know if this series is any good. I've never heard of it, but apparently it went on for at least 3 movies and Gulager directed all of them. So I must admit, I have serious fatigue with this franchise at this point. It was really good in the early stages. Like, I cruised through the first 5 movies. I was genuinely having a good time. But since then, it's been very rough indeed. But at least we have reached the penultimate one. I feel like if Children of the Corn was a huge mountain, I climbed up it in a fairly drama-free way. Nothing went wrong. I got to the top. I planted my flag, and then I turned for home. But the descent back to the bottom has everything's gone wrong. Like, my feet have developed gangrene. The weather's rolled in. I'm just getting battered every day by high winds. I'm running out of food. If I had mates with me, they've fallen off at some point and died. So I'm on my own now. I'm hallucinating. I keep having dreams at night of like a warm cabin with a hot cup of cocoa and a straw bed. And I know I'll get there, but in the meantime, I'm still stuck on this mountain. There's at least a couple of nights to go, and it's really frustrating. So yeah, this is the analogy that I would use, and I don't mind filibustering a little bit today because honestly, I have very little to say about this movie. Sometimes when you watch a bad movie, you can at least have a few jokes about it, but this is a movie that doesn't even really tee you up for that kind of thing. It's just really dour and dull. So let's talk about the plot. It's a little bit confusing at first. I presumed at the beginning of this that this was a direct sequel to the previous one, Genesis, because the previous film ended with the main character, Ali, who was pregnant, being recaptured by the villains. This film begins with a pregnant woman escaping Gatlin and all those murderous children and going on the run. So, because she's pregnant, you'd think that it's the same character as the girl from the previous one. But no, the girl in Genesis was called Ali. The girl in this one is called Ruth, plus it's a completely different actress as well. So I have to figure that it's a different character. But given that both characters are pregnant, why not just make it the same woman? Just to add to the confusion, the guy who wrote Runaway is the same guy who directed Genesis. So you'd think that he would have just made it the same character, right? Just strange. But I was on the back foot with this whole plot immediately because we pick up the action 13 years after Ruth has given birth to her son, and they're still living here, there, and everywhere. They're trying to stay off the grid, I guess, so that nobody from Gatlin can find them. The implication is that they've been living hand to mouth this whole time, living in the back of their car. Maybe Ruth has had the odd job here and there, but certainly it's mentioned that the boy has never been to school. And I just find this really cruel. Like, why would you take your kid on the road for 13 years, never give them a proper roof over their head, never let them have any schooling? It's just not right. Like, despite what's going on with the people from Gatlin, you can't push that onto your kid. You know, I think she should have just fostered the kid, given him away, and let him have a proper upbringing, not just have him living in the backseat of a car. It's just not right at all. So straight away with this film, I didn't like the main character. I didn't approve of this whole situation. And of course, we know that the villains are going to catch up with these two and start harassing them anyway. So you haven't even achieved anything, ultimately. It's not long before we see the first murderous child ghost hanging around at the back of the screen. So I just don't approve of this character Ruth's decisions. This film was apparently made because Dimension, who owned the rights, were in danger of losing them if they didn't make another movie quickly. So they quickly put Children of the Corn Runaway into production, got it done in a swift amount of time. And it was around about this same period that dimension, we're in danger of losing the Hellraiser franchise as well. So they put into place a plan to do a film called Hellraiser Judgment. I've not seen that. I've not seen any Hellraiser film, actually. Don't look at me in that tone of voice. I've just never fancied it. So they had these two films that were getting made purely so that they could keep the rights for these franchises. And these films were even made in the same location, Oklahoma. They presumably had a lot of crossover in terms of the people behind the camera, the people in front of the camera. I've already spotted at least a couple of names who acted in both films, and both films turned out to be shit. I mean, even though I've not seen Hellraiser Judgment, I do watch a lot of other horror YouTubers, and I definitely have a strong recollection of people saying that this particular Hellraiser film, the one that was made just to keep the rights, is absolutely awful. And I can definitely vouch that Children of the Corn Runaway is absolutely awful. So this idea of quickly making films on the cheap just to keep the rights, it's obviously a really bad thing, and I think it's just patronising the fans of the franchises. What makes this film doubly painful is that the town that Ruth rocks up in at the start of the movie, and she tries to make a go of it there, it's one of those really insular, bigoted sort of backwater places. They don't like out of towners, they don't like black people, they don't like people of limited means, say. It's just a really cold, unwelcoming sort of community. Ruth goes to the local school to try and get her boy into education, finally, and the headmistress, she's got two Christian crosses on her ears, and she seems to take great glee in turning down Ruth's kid on some kind of paperwork technicality. If she was a teacher with any morals, even if she didn't have any room at her school, she would at least try and help Ruth a little bit, maybe point her in the direction of some other schools in the county that might be able to help. But she actually seems happy being able to stop this kid getting any schooling, and it's just completely wrong. There's this black character in the movie, a mechanic, and he forms a friendship with Ruth, and he seems a nice guy at first, but as soon as he realises that Ruth is not interested in a sexual relationship, he gets really nasty. Now, this is not exactly a town that holds black people high up on a pedestal, so the idea that this guy would throw away one of the only friendships he's got is just absolutely crazy to me. It's really not a nice place. And the thing is, Ruth doesn't really get any fight back moments against any of the bigotry or racism that's going on. There's no cheer moments where you get to go, yeah, you go, girl. There's nothing like that. She takes a lot of stuff on the chin and just kind of gets on with it. But I spent way too much time in this film feeling depressed about all the ills and prejudices in the world and not enough time enjoying a horror movie. There's just so little to talk about with this. There's so little that happens during the movie. I couldn't even remember the ending. And it's not like I fell asleep when I was watching it. I definitely watched the whole thing. I was wide awake the whole time, genuinely, honestly. But when it came to earlier today and I was starting to plan the review and get my microphone out and stuff like that, I was thinking about the film, and I genuinely couldn't remember what happened in the last 10 or 20 minutes. So I had to go on Wikipedia and sort of remind myself. It's like the ending just completely went out of my brain. And I imagine over the next few months, the rest of the film will go out of my brain as well. This time next year, I probably won't be able to remember Children of the Corn Runaway. And I think that's probably a good thing. The performances are really flat as well. I don't like Marci Miller in the lead role. I think she just doesn't bring anything to the screen. I think the person who should have played the leading role here is Mary Catherine Bryant, who's got a smaller role. She plays this woman who owns a local cafe. She's got a bit of spark about her. I liked her. I thought that I recognised her from something else. She looks a little bit like Anna Kendrick, but obviously I didn't actually think it was Anna Kendrick, but I thought it might be someone else I've seen in other stuff, but I checked her credits and no, I don't recognise anything else that she's done. She was in True Detective, which I've not seen, and she was also in Hellraiser Judgment, which I've not seen, so she's one of the people who would have been bouncing between the two sets around about the time that these movies got made. One thing I should declare is that I watched this film on YouTube. Now, the version on there, according to the people in the comments, it's been heavily trimmed in terms of its violence. So every time there's a kill, a lot of the violence has been cut out. Now, I could have got a DVD for this and had an uncensored version, but the idea of spending money at this point of my Children of the Corn review series, not exactly something I want to do. So I was more than happy to watch the trimmed version. I just made a mental note in my head not to criticise the film for being non-violent, because that would be really unfair. But I've definitely stuck to that. I've not criticised the film for having no gore. That is the least of its problems. Right, I've nothing more to say, so let's get to the bag of terror and find out what sort of score I'm going to give Children of the Corn Runaway. Half a Michael Myers carving knife out of 5. Have you ever seen that film Falling Down, where Michael Douglas gets the cheeseburger and it's the most pathetic thing you've ever seen in your life, and he just kind of holds it up and he's like, look at this pathetic thing. That's how I feel right now. I'm Michael Douglas in Falling Down with my half a carving knife out of 5. If somebody jumped through the window right now and attacked me, and I quickly looked around and grabbed the first thing I could see in order to try and defend myself, that thing would be the bag of terror. I would only have this to defend myself. So hopefully this will not come to fruition this evening. If I do ever get attacked from an intruder coming through the window, it will be another night when I've got like 3 or 4 plastic carving knives to at least attempt some kind of fight back. But when it comes to this film, it's totally bad. It is free on YouTube if you want to test it out for yourself. But, you know, if you are thinking of doing that, then be my guest. In fact, I would like to finish this video by singing Be My Guest from Beauty and the Beast, but with some Children of the Corn Runaway lyrics inserted into the song. I would quite happily do that. I don't mind singing on camera, but I am worried about copyright strikes, so I'm not going to do that. But in the absence of any singing, I will at least finish off by reiterating what I've just said one more time. If you do want to see this film, be my guest.